Yes, we have commuted the sentence of Rod Blagojevich. He served 8 years in jail. It's a long time, and I watched his wife on television. I don't know him very well. I've met him a couple of times. He was on for a short while on The Apprentice years ago. Seemed like a very nice person. Don't know him, but he served 8 years in jail. There's a long time to go. Many people disagree with the sentence. He's a Democrat. He's not a Republican. It was a prosecution by the same people, Comey, Fitzpatrick, the same group, very far from his children. They're growing older. They're going to high school now, and they rarely get to see their father outside of an orange uniform. I saw that, and I did commute his sentence. So he'll be able to go back home with his family after serving 8 years in jail. That was a tremendously powerful, ridiculous sentence, in my opinion.
This is Trump in the aftermath of a spate of surprise pardons and commutations, the most egregious of which is the commutation of Rod Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois who was convicted of wire fraud and conspiracy charges, including trying to sell Barack Obama's U.S. Senate seat for personal profit, saying that it's a, quote, valuable thing, you don't just give it away for nothing, along with a slew of other incriminating and expletive-laden statements he made while being wiretapped by the FBI. He tried to extort a children's hospital CEO for $50,000 in campaign contributions. He made false statements to the FBI. He was impeached. The Illinois Senate voted 59-0 to convict him, and he was barred from ever holding office in Illinois again, along with a 14-year prison sentence. Because nothing says that Trump is an anti-corruption crusader quite like letting perhaps the most brazenly corrupt politician of the early 2000s out of prison with half of his sentence remaining. By the way, this move was a long time coming. As far back as last summer, Trump said of Blagojevich, "I thought he was treated unbelievably unfairly. He's been in jail for 7 years over a phone call where nothing happens." Now, first, it was not, quote, nothing. It was a month of evidence laid out by prosecutors proving that Blagojevich was scheming about the perks he could amass for himself and his family in exchange for selling Obama's vacant Senate seat. And beyond that, let me know if Trump taking umbrage at the idea of a politician being targeted on the basis of a phone call sounds at all familiar. Take your time. I know it's a tough one. In the clip, Trump goes on to say that he didn't know Blagojevich, that he was on Celebrity Apprentice, but he doesn't know him. As if Trump wasn't the host of Celebrity Apprentice. It's not like they lived in the same city and never crossed paths. They were literally on the same show on national TV together, talking to one another.
But I think if you were looking at this like a baseball team, we're making progress. I believe some of our talent.
Yeah, but you're making progress and you're running out of people.
Understand?
You know, you're doing wonderfully. Everything's great, but you keep losing and you're running out of people.
Right.
And you're the project manager.
Right. I know.
And Governor, I have great respect for you. I have great respect for your tenacity, for the fact that you just don't give up. But Rod, you're fired.
So weird how you can never meet someone, but then also interact with them on national television in front of the entire nation. Trump then points out that Blagojevich isn't a Republican, as if that makes any difference. Yes, he was a Democrat. Yes, he was impeached and convicted in the Illinois Senate 59-0, which means that even Democrats voted to remove him from office. But that's evidence that for Trump, it's not about the crime, it's about the party. Trump's fidelity doesn't lie with the rule of law, it's all about protecting his team. And the fact that he thinks pointing out that he crossed party lines to commute the sentence of a criminal is somehow praiseworthy just goes to show that it's always about tribalism for him. He went on to claim that Blagojevich was the victim of the same supposed deep state that Trump blames for holding him accountable for his crimes. He specifically cites James Comey and Fitzpatrick. Now, James Comey wasn't even in the federal government at the time Blagojevich was convicted in 2011. Ironically enough, the FBI director then was Robert Mueller. And as for Fitzpatrick, that isn't a real person, but accounting for the fact that Trump's brain is just errant synapses firing, he's probably referring to Patrick Fitzgerald, the Northern Illinois U.S. attorney who prosecuted Blagojevich, again, for trying to sell a United States Senate seat so he could make money off of it. Yeah, shame on Fitzgerald. And given Trump's newfound boldness when it comes to embracing corruption out in the open, he also commuted the sentence of Judith Negrin, the former Miami area owner of a mental health care company who committed one of the largest fraud schemes ever prosecuted by the Medicare Fraud Strike Force by submitting more than $205 million in fraudulent claims to Medicare. He pardoned Michael Milken, the former junk bond king who became the face of the insider trading financial scandals of the 80s and was convicted of racketeering and securities fraud. He pardoned former New York Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik, who pleaded guilty to felony tax fraud and lying to the government. He pardoned former San Francisco 49ers owner Edward DeBartolo Jr., who was convicted in a gambling fraud scandal. Quite the deserving bunch. And prior to this spate of pardons and commutations for criminals, Trump pardoned Joe Arpaio, the former Maricopa County sheriff who was charged with criminal contempt of court when he refused to stop racially profiling Latinos. He pardoned Scooter Libby, a top aide to Dick Cheney, who was convicted of perjury and obstruction of justice, whom even George W. Bush wouldn't pardon. He pardoned Dinesh D'Souza, a loudmouth conservative provocateur who pleaded guilty to campaign finance violations. And look, we could go on, but what is crystal clear is that Trump's entire MO is attacking the rule of law, is protecting criminals, and undermining many of the same charges that he himself is guilty of. He thinks that by virtue of unilaterally overturning the punishment for these charges, that it'll invalidate these same charges against himself. But it doesn't. All it shows is his brazen contempt for our justice system and that there is no criminal too disgraceful for Trump to coddle. At the risk of sounding trite, Trump isn't draining the swamp, he's reveling in it.